If everything we know about Mary came from the hymns and carols we sing, our image of her would be that of a meek and mild servant of God. Gentle Mary meekly bowed her head, according to one hymn. Gentle Mary laid her child in a lowly manger, according to another. Gentle Mary, humble Mary, God has chosen you his son to bear, are the opening words of yet another. And there's a Catholic hymn which says, Gentle Mother, peaceful dove, teach us wisdom, teach us love. And a carol that describes Mary as that mother mild who laid her baby in a manger for a bed. But then there's this morning's song, a song attributed to Mary herself, and it's not so much a sweet lullaby as it is a battle cry. And the singer is not some demure, unassuming young girl, but instead a warrior princess. Mary describes herself as the attendant to the one who knocks tyrants off their high horse, who pulls victims out of the mud, who scatters the arrogant and proud, and who fills the bellies of the starving and poor. This morning's song, known by many as the Magnificat, is how Mary would have envisioned a world of justice in her own day and time. But it wasn't the kind of justice that means punishment or payback for wrongdoing. God's justice is mostly concerned with restoration and mercy. That's why Jesus arrives, not as God's right-hand man judging us and watching for our every mistake, but humbly in our midst to restore us through love and mercy. Mary sings of a world that God is flipping upside down, or perhaps right side up, by seeing the overlooked, by humbling those who are proud, by lifting the lowly, and by feeding the hungry. That's what justice looked like in Mary's Magnificat. And so as I thought about her song, I wondered what a modern day Magnificat might sound like if I were to write a song of justice, one in which honesty and equity ruled the day. What might it include in its verses? My own Magnificat would certainly include a verse about the earth restored to its former glory, a planet in which its streams run clear and its air is clean, a world in which rainforests are thought to be sacred and protected from deforestation, one in which its citizens cooperate and work together to create a sustainable environment. In my Magnificat, I would sing of a world in which the diversity of humanity was thought to be holy, one in which sexual minorities were treated the same as everyone else, a world in which skin pigment did not separate one person from another, a world in which the many religions were seen as different pathways to God instead of barriers between each other. In short, a world without borders. There would be an entire verse in my Magnificat devoted to women, whereas Mary's Magnificat mentions tyrants knocked off their high horses and victims pulled out of the mud. Mine would be a bit more specific. Those tyrants would be acknowledged as men, and the victims would be identified as women. My Magnificat would imagine a world in which women are not forced to give birth against their will. It would reclaim the feminine divine and acknowledge it as a powerful force within all of us. In my Magnificat, hunger would be a thing of the past. Today, the world's farmers produce enough food to feed 1.5 times the global population, and yet 783 million people suffer from chronic hunger. In my Magnificat, God would lift up the hungry and homeless, and people would attend to the needs of their neighbor. In my Magnificat, war would not be a profit-making business for companies such as Lockheed Martin, and it would be thought to be a conflict of interest if senators and representatives held investments in the stock of those companies. In my Magnificat, there would be no systemic bombing of hospitals, and genocide would not exist. My Magnificat would lift up the courage of the refugee and immigrant. Every day all over the world, people make one of the most difficult decisions in their lives to leave their homes in search of a safer, better life. Some people leave home to get a job or an education. Some no longer feel safe and might have been targeted just because of their ethnicity, religion, sexuality, or political stance. In my Magnificat, they would find safety in the lands to which they flee. These are some of the things that I would include in my 21st century version of Mary's Magnificat. It would be a song of justice, the kind of justice that the psalmist speaks of, where steadfast love will meet, and justice and peace embrace and kiss. The kind of justice that Alexander Solzhenitsyn spoke of when he said, "Justice is conscience, not a personal conscience, but a conscience of the whole of humanity." Those who clearly recognize the voice of their own conscience usually recognize also the voice of justice. This is the kind of justice that Mary sang about in this morning's Magnificat. And it's the kind of justice that God longs for our world. It may sound like a fairy tale fantasy, this vision of peace and justice, this upside down world in which the lowly are lifted up and the arrogant and proud are put in their place. May sound impossible, but I wonder if that's not the same sort of skeptical reaction Jesus received when he proclaimed the reign of God, in which the last will be first and the first shall be last. I wonder if the audience of the prophet Isaiah felt it was nothing but a fanciful dream when he foretold a peaceable kingdom ruled by someone upon whom the Spirit of God would rest, one who wouldn't judge by appearances or decide on the basis of hearsay, one who would render decisions based in equity for those who suffer. And when Hannah, the mother of the prophet Samuel, gave rise to a song of thanksgiving, probably the very song which inspired Mary's Magnificat, I wonder if it was thought to be nothing but a wishful dream of an old woman who proclaimed the bows of mighty warriors are shattered, but those who are stumbling now dress themselves in power. And when she sang that God raises the poor from the dust and lifts up the needy from the garbage pile. Can so many dreams of peace and justice be nothing more than just the pie in the sky imaginings of the poor and downtrodden? Or are these visions of peace and justice and equity actually the foundations upon which we have been called by God to rebuild our world? A wise person once said, you have to dream before your dreams can come true. And so maybe God is calling us during this season of Advent, a season of waiting marked by a sense of hope, Maybe God is calling us to join with Mary and Hannah and Jesus and the heavenly angels in dreaming of peace on earth, goodwill to all people. And maybe our own Magnificat is just another stanza of the same song that has been sung throughout the ages by our spiritual ancestors. Maybe we are being invited to envision peace and justice so that we can in turn make it a reality. May God's song of justice and mercy reign within our hearts. May it be the light that guides our daily path, and may it be the foundation for the new world we have been commissioned to create. Amen.